99. Lu Meng's white-clothed crossing. Sima Yi's analysis proved to be accurate. Although Liu Bei and Sun Quan had formed an alliance, deep-seated distrust remained between them. During Lu Su's tenure, he advocated for cooperation between Wu and Shu to counter Cao Cao. However, after Lu Su's death, his successor, Lu Meng, held a different stance. Lu Meng was one of Eastern Wu's most distinguished generals. From a young age, he had trained extensively in martial arts and earned numerous battle honors, gaining Sun Quan's favor. One day, Sun Quan advised him, "Now that you hold great responsibility, you should find time to read and study." Lu Meng replied, "With so many military affairs to handle, how could I have time for reading?" Sun Quan smiled and said, "I am not asking you to become a scholar. I only suggest that you read military strategies and history. You say you are too busy, but surely your workload is not heavier than mine. Yet, I have found that studying these subjects has greatly benefited me. You should give it a try." Following Sun Quan's advice, Lu Meng began reading whenever he had time, and his strategic thinking improved significantly. When Lu Su first assumed command after Zhu Yu's death, he visited Lu Meng's camp. At the time, he viewed Lu Meng as merely a capable warrior with little strategic insight. However, after conversing with him, Lu Su was greatly impressed by Lu Meng's sharp analysis and broad vision. He remarked, "Your knowledge and judgment have grown tremendously. You are no longer the same Meng of Wu I once knew." Lu Meng proudly replied, "A person should be viewed differently after just 3 days apart, let alone a longer time. You must not judge me by my past self." After Lu Su's passing, Lu Meng assumed command and stationed his forces at Luku, modern-day southwest Jiayu, Hubei. He suspected that Guan Yu harbored ambitions to annex eastern Wu, and he wrote to Sun Quan, urging military action against him. "Liu Bei and Guan Yu are both untrustworthy," he warned. "They cannot be considered true allies." Sun Quan, too, was displeased with Guan Yu's arrogance. At one point, he had sent an envoy proposing a marriage alliance, offering his son to marry Guan Yu's daughter. Not only did Guan Yu refuse, but he also insulted the envoy. This enraged Sun Quan, and after receiving Lu Meng's letter, he resolved that Guan Yu must be eliminated. At this time, Cao Cao's envoys arrived, proposing a joint attack on Guan Yu. Sun Quan immediately agreed, promising to strike Guan Yu's rear. Guan Yu, aware of Lu Meng's reputation, was wary of Eastern Wu's movements despite his focus on the siege of Fancheng. To safeguard his rear, he reinforced defenses along the Wushu border. However, Lu Meng devised a clever deception. Frequently plagued by illness, he now feigned a severe relapse and requested medical leave. Sun Quan issued an official order relieving him of command, replacing him with a young scholar general, Lu Xun. News of this change quickly reached Guan Yu in Fancheng. Hearing that Lu Meng was gravely ill and that Lu Xun, a mere scholar, was now in charge, he was secretly delighted. A few days later, Lu Xun sent envoys to visit Guan Yu, bringing gifts and a letter. In it, he praised Guan Yu's recent victory at Fancheng, where he had flooded the Wei armies and captured Yu Jin. "Such a display of divine power is admired far and wide," he wrote. "With Cao Cao defeated, we in the south rejoice as well. I am just a humble scholar, unworthy of my new command. I shall need your guidance in the future." Guan Yu, reading Lu Xun's humble and respectful words, felt reassured. Believing Lu Xun to be weak and inexperienced, he withdrew most of his defensive forces from the Wu border and redeployed them to Fancheng. Lu Xun secretly relayed this information to Sun Quan and Lu Meng, who now prepared for their strike. Meanwhile, Guan Yu's forces had swelled with over 100,000 surrendered Wei troops, straining their food supplies. Facing shortages, Guan Yu forcefully seized grain stored at Shangguan, an eastern Wu supply depot. Upon learning that his grain had been stolen, Sun Quan ordered Lu Meng to launch a rapid assault on Guan Yu's rear. Lu Meng moved swiftly. Reaching Xuanyang, modern-day southwest Huangmai, Hubei, he disguised his warships as merchant vessels. He handpicked elite troops and hid them in the ship holds, while rowers dressed as civilian merchants, all clad in white robes. As the fleet sailed toward the northern shore, Shu sentries saw only a convoy of harmless traders and allowed them to dock. However, under the cover of night, Lu Meng's soldiers emerged from the ships, silently infiltrating the watchtowers and capturing the guards. With complete surprise, Lu Meng's forces swiftly seized control of the northern shore and advanced toward Gongan. The Shu generals guarding Gongan and Jiangling harbored grievances against Guan Yu, and with Lu Meng's persuasion, they surrendered without resistance. Upon entering the city, Lu Meng took extra precautions to maintain discipline. He personally visited the families of the Shu soldiers, ensuring their safety and forbidding his troops from looting or harming civilians. When one of his soldiers, who was his fellow townsman, took a straw raincoat from a villager to cover his armor, Lu Meng immediately had him executed for violating military orders. This strict discipline shocked the entire army, ensuring total compliance. Meanwhile, Cao Cao's reinforcements, led by Xu Huang, had reached the outskirts of Fancheng. Xu Huang had copies of Sun Quan's agreement to attack Guan Yu, which he had his troops fire into Guan Yu's camp via arrows. Now, with his supply lines cut and facing a renewed assault from Wei forces, Guan Yu found himself trapped. Forced to lift the siege of Fancheng, he withdrew his troops. Guan Yu sent an envoy to Jiangling to assess the situation. Upon arrival, Lu Meng treated him courteously and even allowed him to visit the families of the Shu soldiers, who spoke well of the Eastern Wu troops. Upon returning to camp, the envoy relayed what he had seen, and morale plummeted among Guan Yu soldiers. Many began deserting, sneaking away to join their families in Jiangling. By the time Guan Yu realized his grave mistake in underestimating Eastern Wu, it was too late. He had no choice but to retreat toward Maicheng, modern-day southeast Dangyang, Hubei. Sun Quan pursued him to Maicheng and sent envoys to persuade him to surrender. Instead, Guan Yu attempted to flee westward with a small force of cavalry. However, Sun Quan had already anticipated this and set up ambushes along the route. Guan Yu and his remaining troops were intercepted, and he was captured alive. Knowing that Guan Yu would never submit, Sun Quan ordered his execution on the spot. In recognition of Sun Quan's success, Cao Cao granted him the title Marquis of Nanchang. Later, when Cao Pai ascended the throne and declared himself emperor, he further elevated Sun Quan to king of Wu. 100. Cao Ji's 7 Steps poem. After Sun Quan seized Jingzhou and killed Guan Yu, he feared that Liu Bei would retaliate. To secure his position, he sent envoys to Cao Cao, expressing his willingness to submit to him. In his letter, he also urged Cao Cao to follow the mandate of heaven and declare himself emperor without delay. When Cao Cao received the letter, he casually handed it to his closest advisors and smiled, saying, "That cunning Sun Quan wants to put me on the fire and roast me." Since Emperor Xian of Han had relocated the capital to Xuchang, Cao Cao had held full control over the court and the military. If he wanted to depose Emperor Xian and claim the throne, it would not be difficult. However, he was aware that despite the declining power of the Han dynasty, it still retained a legitimate claim to the throne. He feared that if he declared himself emperor, some might oppose him. Therefore, he saw Sun Quan's suggestion as an attempt to corner him politically. After a moment of contemplation, Cao Cao said, "If the mandate of heaven truly exists, then I shall be like King Wen of Zhou." By this, he meant that he would leave the throne to his son rather than taking it himself. Not long after, Cao Cao's chronic illness worsened. Despite medical treatments, his condition deteriorated, and he eventually died in Luoyang at the age of 66. Following his death, his eldest son, Crown Prince Cao Pai, succeeded him as King of Wei and Chancellor, holding supreme power over the court. Soon after assuming his father's position, he received accusations against his younger brother, Cao Ji, the Marquis of Lindsay, who was said to have been drinking excessively, insulting officials, and even detaining an imperial envoy. Furious, Cao Pai ordered his brother's immediate arrest and summoned him to Yi for interrogation. The rivalry between Cao Pai and Cao Ji. Cao Pai and Cao Ji were both sons of Lady Bian, one of Cao Cao's consorts. While Cao Cao was a renowned statesman, military strategist, and poet, his sons also inherited his literary talents. In Chinese literary history, they are collectively known as the Three Caos, San Cao. Cao Ji displayed extraordinary intelligence from a young age. By his teenage years, he had read extensively and was capable of composing remarkable literary works. Once, after reading one of Cao Ji's essays, Cao Cao became suspicious and asked, "Did you have someone else write this for you?" Kneeling before his father, Cao Ji replied, "Father, I compose words as naturally as I speak. How could I have someone else write for me? If you do not believe me, you may test me." Cao Cao put him through several tests and was astonished by his exceptional talent. As a result, he developed a deep fondness for Cao Ji and even considered making him the heir to the throne. However, due to opposition from his ministers, he hesitated and did not make a final decision. Cao Pai, fearing that his own position as heir was at risk, sought ways to win his father's favor. Once, when Cao Cao was departing for a military campaign, both brothers accompanied him to bid farewell. At that moment, Cao Ji spontaneously composed a piece praising Cao Cao's achievements, which impressed the entire court. Seeing this, one of Cao Pai's close advisors whispered to him, "The king is leaving soon. All you need to do is express your sorrow." Following the advice, Cao Pai wept as he bade farewell to his father. Cao Cao, deeply moved by his son's apparent sincerity, shed tears as well. This event shifted Cao Cao's perception. Although he recognized Cao Ji's literary brilliance, he now believed that Cao Pai was more sincere and trustworthy. With several courtiers also speaking in Cao Pai's favor, Cao Cao's preference gradually changed. Cao Ji, however, was not one to abide by courtly decorum. On one occasion, he violated palace regulations by riding a chariot within the imperial grounds and opening the palace gates without authorization. When Cao Cao learned of this, he was enraged and ordered the palace guards responsible for the gates to be executed. Another time, Cao Cao appointed Cao Ji to lead a military campaign. Upon hearing this, Cao Pai secretly invited Cao Ji for a feast, ensuring he became heavily intoxicated. That same night, Cao Cao summoned Cao Ji several times, but he remained unconscious. Displeased, Cao Cao cancelled his appointment. After this, Cao Cao abandoned any thoughts of naming Cao Ji as his heir. The test of the 7 Steps poem. When Cao Pai ascended to power, his resentment toward Cao Ji remained. Seizing the opportunity, he had his younger brother arrested and planned to execute him. Their mother, Lady Bian, was devastated. She pleaded with Cao Pai, reminding him that they were brothers and urging him to show mercy. Unwilling to openly defy his mother's wishes, and aware that executing his own brother over minor offenses would damage his reputation, Cao Pai decided to demote Cao Ji instead. He stripped him of his title as Marquis of Lindsay and assigned him a lower noble rank. According to legend, Cao Pai summoned Cao Ji and, as a final test, demanded that he compose a poem within the span of 7 steps. If he succeeded, he would be spared. Without hesitation, Cao Ji took a few steps and, with each step, recited a line. "Boil the beans, burning the beanstalk. The beans cry in the pot. Born of the same root. Why so eager to destroy one another?" Hearing the poem, Cao Pai was struck with guilt, realizing that he had been too harsh on his own brother. He ultimately spared Cao Ji's life. The end of the Han dynasty. Unlike his father, Cao Pai had no qualms about openly seizing power. In the autumn of that same year, his loyal officials petitioned Emperor Xian to abdicate in favor of the Wei king. Having spent over 30 years as a puppet emperor, Emperor Xian, weary of the power struggles around him, formally abdicated and was granted the noble title of Duke of Shanyang. To make the transition appear legitimate, Cao Pai's ministers staged a grand abdication ceremony, portraying the transfer of power as a voluntary act. In 220 AD, Cao Pai officially declared himself Emperor of Wei, marking the end of the Eastern Han dynasty.